Heroine's Beginning, Chapter 18. I was right. All of my siblings reveled in the story of Ella's rescue. It was the only thing they wanted to speak of all afternoon, and all the way through our late dinner. My excursion to the manor meant that I didn't start preparing for dinner until much later in the day. This did not matter much to the rest of my family, who, once I had told them what had happened, descended on me with endless questions. It was only when I got the little ones to bed, and the others followed after, did the questions stop. I was exhausted after cleaning the plates from dinner, and I quickly followed suit. I practically flopped into my bed, and was asleep moments later. The next day, things had just about returned to normal. I was once again alone in the house, while everyone else was outside, either playing or working, and I was stuck doing all the housework. It would have been a normal, generic day, if not for the knock at the door mid-morning. I was not expecting anyone, so was surprised at this. I went to the door and opened it, and found the herald who had delivered the news about the ball standing at my front door. "Are you Marion Brown?" he asked. "Yes," I responded, my voice raised slightly, not sure what was going on. "I was asked to give you this," he said, lifting his hand and offering me a thick envelope. I took it from him and thanked him. He did not say anything else, and left immediately. I looked down at the envelope, which had my name scrawled on the top in curly writing. I tore the seal off the back, and moved inside to sit down. Inside were several sheets of parchment, written on front and back. A thicker piece of parchment fell out and onto my lap. I picked it up, and realized it was a wedding invitation. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Lord Christopher Howard and Lady Ella Cecil at the turn of the new month, to be held at Duke William Howard's palace. The rest of the invitation contained information of times and dress codes and other such matters. I placed it to one side and decided to read it later. I picked up the other sheets of parchment with writing all over them. Dear Marion, I don't know how to begin. I owe you my freedom and my happiness, and I will forever be grateful to you for that. I know I can never repay you, but I hope the invitation to my wedding and the promise of a new dress for you to wear will begin to make up the debt. I feel I owe you an explanation of what happened to me in the past week. After I delivered all those dresses to you and the other village girls, I arrived back home and set to work on my own dress. It was Mother's, beautiful and white, with pink floral decorations sewn around the neckline. I'm sure if you saw it you would remember. I was called down to the kitchen by Lady Kensington, who had many more tasks for me to complete, and so my dress had to wait in my room. While I was peeling vegetables to cook for their evening meal, a knock came at the door. There was an old traveling woman, who asked if she could rest by my fire for a while. Of course I said she could. She was very pleasant company. You know how empty that kitchen can feel when you're all alone. Anyway, Lady Kingston called me upstairs while we were in the middle of our conversation, and I said she could stay until I got back. When I greeted Lady Kingston, or Lady Evil as you like to call her, she demanded to know why the stairs were not shining with her own reflection. She told me to scrub them again. After I'd finished preparing and serving dinner, I returned to the kitchen and offered the traveling woman another cup of tea, but she declined, claiming she had seen all she needed to see, and she didn't want to impose on me any further, and so she left. I'm sorry, my friend, if this tale is not told very well. You were always much better than me at telling stories like this. Anyway, the night of the ball arrived, and I had just finished all my tasks for the day, and saw no reason why I couldn't attend. Lady Kingston had the carriage brought around, and there was more than enough space for 4 people. But when I walked into the entrance hall, Lady Evil shouted at me, and told me I was not allowed to go. I pleaded and begged her to let me go. I mainly wanted to see my friends, and the man I had met that day. You know, the one who had helped me with the cart. But Lady Kingston was insistent, and just to spite me, she tore my dress. Lady Anna also joined in, ripping and pulling it to pieces. Lady Jacqueline just stood there in shock. It was horrid. I had spent all my spare time on that dress, and it was Mother's, which made it even worse. Once they finished, they climbed into the carriage, Lady Anna pulling Lady Jacqueline inside, and they drove off, leaving me in tattered rags and tears falling. I ran inside and sat at the table, when there was a knock at the door. The traveler woman from a few days previous was standing there, and she said she had a gift for me to repay my kindness for the other day. She held out to me the most beautiful pair of golden shoes, more like slippers, I had ever seen in my life. I told her I could not accept such a precious gift. She insisted, saying, "Well, if you don't take these, what will you wear with your dress?" I was very confused by this, until I looked down and saw I was wearing a stunning gold dress. It had appeared like magic. I tell you this next part in strict confidence, Marion, as no one is really supposed to know, but the traveler woman was actually a fairy in disguise. She told me she wanders around looking for kindness and repays the giver with special gifts, each unique to what that person desires. I wanted to go to the ball, and so she gave me a dress, shoes, a tiara, and a carriage to get there and back. I was about to get into the carriage when I asked her for one more small gift, that my stepfamily would not recognize me. As it was a gift I had asked for, the terms were slightly different. The magic that would keep me from being recognized would only last for a short amount of time, till midnight precisely. The rest of the gifts were mine to keep. I set off to the ball, my heart aglow. I arrived a little late, as you no doubt remember. When I walked inside, the first person I noticed was the man who had helped me with the cart. He was standing in the center of the room. You must know the next part, about the dance with Christopher. He remembered me, and he was just as charming and handsome as I remembered. I will not bore you with the details of what happened when we left the ballroom. He showed me the gardens, and we talked and laughed all night. There was one moment when Christopher left to collect some drinks, where I accidentally walked into Lady Anna. I froze with fright, having forgotten about the magic, but she had not one clue who I was. Christopher returned, and the incident was quickly forgotten. It was only when the clock struck 12:15 did I realize I had to leave. There was only a short time left before Lady Evil and Lady Idiot, as you so fondly call them, would work out it was me, and so I ran. I felt terrible leaving Christopher behind with no explanation, but I was too scared about what they would do if they found me there, and if I got home before midnight, they would have no knowledge of me being at the ball, and I would escape their wrath. I took a wrong turn somewhere in the gardens, managing to lose Christopher along the way. When I spotted the way back to the ballroom, I began to run. There were only 5 minutes left. I got to the building and saw Christopher chasing me, quite a ways behind me. I wish I had not turned around, but I was too frightened, so I simply ran. I ran through the middle of the ballroom, you probably noticed that part, and straight into the carriage that was waiting for me. I told the driver to hurry, and he did. I stopped briefly on the palace steps to remove my shoes. Running in heels is so hard. As I drove off, I saw Christopher out the window, at the top of the palace steps, waving at me to stop. But I didn't. I made it home without incident. I realized in the carriage that one of my shoes had fallen out of my hand while I was running, but I was too occupied in getting away to notice. When I got home, I thanked the driver of the carriage and told him to leave as quickly as he could. I ran up to my bedroom and changed into the closest dress I could find. I took off the tiara and my one shoe, but I couldn't find another pair to put on. I knew I had to hide the fairy gifts somewhere my stepfamily would not look. And so I hid them under the loose floorboard in the library. You know, the one to the left of the bookcase. They never entered that room unless completely necessary. I figured they would be safe there. Unfortunately, I was sadly mistaken in understanding how the magic had worked. I thought that it meant that if I was seen before midnight by my stepfamily, they would not know who I was, and would remain ignorant of the identity of the girl they saw at the ball. However, what it actually meant was that until midnight, my stepfamily would not recognize me. But as soon as midnight passed, the magic would disappear, and they would know I was the girl who danced with Christopher at the ball. I did not count on Lady Anna bursting through the kitchen door, with her mother close behind her. They knew I was the girl at the ball, and they were both furious. They shouted and cursed at me, and Lady Kingston dragged me up to the attic and locked me behind the door as a punishment. I spent the night in there. It was cold and dark, but I knew I would be let out in the morning to do chores. I had the memories of the ball to entertain me and keep me in good spirits. The next morning, I woke earlier than the family, as usual, and so I waited. By the time the sun was at its highest point, I knew something was wrong. By mid-afternoon, Jacqueline came up to the room to deliver my meal. I tried to get her to tell me what was going on, but she placed the food on the floor and closed the door behind her. I shouted after her. Then I heard a small voice through the wood. Jacqueline told me of the proclamation in the village, and said that her mother and Anna had decided to keep me here until Christopher had passed through, preferably taking Anna with him as his wife. I begged her to let me go. I tried my hardest to convince her, but I knew deep down she would not stand up to her family, and so I waited. Jacqueline brought me meals and took them away again. I stayed in there for 3 days. On the morning of the 3rd day, I was visited by Lady Kingston. I confronted her, asked her why she must be so cruel to me. I shouted at her for tricking my father and making my life a misery. She said such horrible things to me, Marion, truly cruel things. I know my parents had always told me to be kind to everyone, but in that moment I hated her, truly hated her. I know this sounds terrible, but it's the truth. Our conversation, if you could even call it that, ended in me screaming at her to let me out, and her locking the door on me again. When Jacqueline came to deliver my breakfast and found me in tears on the floor, with my meager bowl of porridge, she slipped a key into my hand. Before I could thank her, she left. When I had finished my food, I was still very hungry. The meals I had been given were not very substantial. I heard the sounds of horses outside, and knew that must be Christopher on his search. I used the key to open the door and try to escape. To be fair, I got quite far. I got to the entrance hall before I was pulled back by my hair. Lady Kingston had grabbed me and pulled me back up to the attic, locking me in there. I tried screaming, but she covered my mouth. When she locked the door, she told me once Christopher had gone, I was going to receive the punishment I deserved. I tried crying out, but she had locked the windows before I was placed in the room. So I stared out, watching Christopher ride away. I tried to hold back the sobs, but I failed. I sat on the floor for a good while, scared of what Lady Evil was going to do to me. So I knew I had to get out. I scanned the room for something to help me, and spotted the empty water pitcher on the floor. So I waited. It was only when I heard several pairs of footsteps coming up the stairs did I grab the pitcher and hide behind the door. I did not realize it was you coming through the door. I would not have tried to hit you on the head. I am still so sorry for that. I was so relieved you had come to get me. And I can never thank you enough for showing Christopher where I was. Once you left the room, Christopher told me of his love for me, and the pain he was in the last few days. I knew I loved him. I think I've loved him since the first time I set eyes on him. He told me what had happened downstairs, how Jacqueline had finally stood up to her family, and how you had pushed past Lady Evil to get to me. I told him who I was and about my parents and my stepfamily. We stayed up there for, I'm not sure for how long, but it was just what I needed. I needed to tell someone. Also, Marion, I know exactly what those books are talking about when it comes to true love and kissing. I'm blushing just writing this down. And he proposed, Marion. I'm so happy to accept him, and I'm going to be his wife. By the time we made it back downstairs, Christopher's friend, I think his name is James, told us you had to go home. So I did not get a chance to tell you all of this in person, hence this very long letter. I hope you will accept the wedding invitation. It also comes with an extension to your entire family. I would also ask that you come and stay with me for a few days before the wedding, if you can afford to spend some time away from home. I would dearly love to see you again. Jacqueline is here with me. She did not want to stay at the manor. We are now living at the palace. The herald I sent to deliver this letter will be back again tomorrow. I enclosed some extra paper for you to write your response. Just hand it to him and he will ensure that I get it. I look forward to seeing you again. All my best to you and your family. Lots of love, Ella.